Have you ever felt torn between what you want and what God is asking of you? We all have those moments when we just want to lay on the couch or just do what we want to do. But duty calls. The weight of responsibility, the battle between your desires and divine purpose. St.PeterDamian knew this struggle well, a man who sought the silence of the monastery, yet was constantly pulled into the chaos of the world. What happens when God's plan isn't your plan? Let's meet the saint who wrestled with this constant struggle of carrying out God's wishes. In the heart of Italy, a child was left orphaned, a boy named Peter, thrust into a world of hardship and suffering. Without parents to guide him, he endured cruelty at the hands of his own kin. Imagine the loneliness, the uncertainty of a life without love. But God had not abandoned him. Hope arrived in the form of his older brother, a priest, who recognized something in Peter that others overlooked, a deep intellect and an even deeper soul. Under his care, Peter found not just education, but a calling. From an early age, Peter sought something beyond the fleeting comforts of this world. He embraced solitude, prayer, and extreme self-discipline. Fasting was not an occasional practice, it became his way of life. In the stillness of monastic life, he meditated upon the Psalms, spending hours immersed in the presence of God. His devotion led him to the order of St. Benedict, where he fully surrendered himself to a life of rigorous asceticism. Bread and water were his only nourishment. Sleep was a luxury he rarely permitted himself. Yet this was not an escape from the world. Peter was preparing himself for battle, a battle not fought with swords, but with words, prayer, and unwavering conviction. The church of his time was in turmoil. Corruption, the sale of religious offices, and moral decay had taken root among the clergy. It would have been easier to remain silent, to look away. But Peter could not. He wielded his words like a sword, writing with fervor and courage, calling for reform with a voice that could not be ignored. His wisdom and holiness soon made him a leader. He was elected prior of Fonte Avellana, where under his guidance, 5 more hermitages flourished. His influence spread, and the church took notice. Then, a summons from the Pope himself. Peter was to be made a bishop, an honor he did not seek. In fact, he resisted so fervently that only the threat of excommunication forced him to accept the role. Reluctantly, he became Bishop of Ostia, elevated to the College of Cardinals, drawn into the heart of church governance at a time of chaos. The papacy was under siege, rival factions, riots, political manipulation. Peter found himself in the midst of it all, not as a politician, but as a defender of truth. He confronted corruption, challenged rioters in Milan, and stood unwavering in his support of Pope Nicholas II. But his heart was never at ease in the halls of power. His soul longed for the stillness of monastic life, and yet duty called him back, time and again. When Pope Nicholas II died, another crisis erupted. Peter was instrumental in securing the election of Pope Alexander VI. His battles were never-ending. Finally, in 1067, he was permitted to return to the solitude he so desperately craved. But his respite was brief. Just 2 years later, the Pope summoned him once more, this time to prevent a royal divorce that threatened the sanctity of marriage. Though weary, he obeyed, once again leaving the quiet for the storm. His final journey brought him to Ravenna, where his mission took its toll. His body, worn by years of sacrifice, could endure no more. In 1072, in a Benedictine monastery in Faenza, PeterDamian surrendered his soul to God. The people knew, long before the Church's formal declaration, that he was a saint. His legacy endured through the centuries, and in 1823, Pope Leo XII declared him a Doctor of the Church, a title given to those whose teachings illuminate the faith for generations. St.PeterDamian was not a warrior in the traditional sense. He did not wield a sword or command armies, but he fought for holiness, for reform, for the purity of the Church, and he paid the price, again and again, for standing firm in the face of corruption and complacency. His life forces us to ask, would we do the same? Would we dare to speak the truth when the world demands our silence? Would we sacrifice comfort, reputation, even our own peace, for the sake of righteousness? St.PeterDamian's legacy is not one of mere contemplation, but of action. His courage calls out to us even now. The question is, will we answer? Let's ask for St.PeterDamian's intercession for all of those times when we are not in the best disposition to do what we are called to do. St.PeterDamian, pray for us.